Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Stephanie Hardy on my channel. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Queenie.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's snowing here, but snowing.
And we are at 70 degrees and it's sunny.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Wow. Okay, tell us about yourself.
Okay, where do I begin? I am a children's author and librarian, mother of one, and I've worked as a prison librarian prior to becoming a children's librarian. Currently, right now, we're not working, so I've been at home working, making masks for people, and trying to work on some of my literary endeavors, but I really haven't had much time. I like to eat and travel and explore and, try different things. And that's about it right now.
Okay. What made you want to become an author?
I've always written would write as a form of expression. As a child, thought it was easier to write things down rather than to verbalize them. I just felt more comfortable doing so. And 6th and 7th grade, my poems were selected for an area-wide program that the school system would put on. And I got an award, and they were published in a book. And the poems were based off of some of the violence that was going on at the time here. And so from then, I didn't think that I was going to be a writer or a published writer after that as an adult, but I started writing short stories that were smut for my best friend who would not read unless it was erotic in nature. So to share in my love for reading is my drug of choice. That was how I pulled her in. And so I came up with a book of short stories, and it was an awkward thing. I mean, I was proud, but then I was kind of shy about it because of the nature of the books. I think that time I was about maybe 24, 25. And so I worked in the jails then, and it's around a lot of conscious people and older people, and sometimes the people that I thought would shun me or turn their nose up because of the content were excited about the content, while others were like, there's so much going on in the world, why are you writing about this? Not really understanding my main objective was to pull in reluctant readers, which is what I did. A few years later, a little more than a few years later, because I published that in 2007. And then my first children's book, The Empress's New Hair, I published that in 2012. And it just felt more natural to write children's stories. And it's more exciting for me because you get that gratification quick. Whereas, you're writing adult novels, it takes some time to get it done and get it published. And I don't have any patience. That's not my strong suit. And so writing for children is what I prefer to do and what I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm. And you say you started in the prison library?
No, I was a prison librarian before I became a children's librarian. And prior to doing that, I worked in the jail as a librarian for a little while. I got displaced, and so I went and started working in the prison library, not maybe an hour, 20 minutes away from my home. So I did commute for like 6 years. And prior to all of that, I did I worked at Wayne State as a graduate student assistant. I worked in another urban public library as an outreach librarian. But children's librarianship was my concentration in library school. But at the time, I graduated with my master's in 2009. That was when we were having a lot of financial issues. And so people weren't leaving their positions, and it was really hard to find work. And so I ended up working in the prison, it was fine for me. And I felt like I was supposed to be there because of how I got there. And I had worked in the jail as a dental assistant for 9 years. So for me, it was second nature. It was not a problem for me. And I enjoyed it. I just didn't enjoy the commute. And then after a while, I started to realize how toxic the environment was, just to my spirit. Nothing happened to me, but just seeing some of the stuff and hearing and just being there, it became a bit much.
Now tell us about your books.
So The Empress is New Here is about Empress Diana of Detroit Charm. I grew up in a beauty salon, literally. And this Empress is having all these issues with her hair, but she learns to embrace herself and her hair, and to also celebrate diversity through her hair, because her hair can do so many things. And it's kind of funny. Even the boys like it. I get a big chuckle out of them when I read the story to the young men. Like a Salad, I released last year, and it's about two siblings exploring nuances of skin tones within their family. So come from a very culturally and diverse family, and the book kind of touches on colorisms, but in a positive way. So one of my coworkers called and asked if I knew of a book that talked about the differences of skin tones, because they had a patron that had a little one that was asking why somebody was a different color than somebody else in their family. And I'm like, well, I'm writing one, but I haven't, it's all in my head. I haven't put it in black and white. So she lit the fire under me to finish Like a Salad. And originally it was called The Hugh Family, but I was like, that's not really catchy. And something came to me. It's like a Salad in the process of writing it. So I changed the name of the story to Like a Salad.
And that will be my next question. Where did the titles come from? What was the inspiration behind the titles?
So The Empress is New Here was a play off of The Emperor's New Clothes. And so I have always been instrumental in kind of telling the illustrators kind of what I want in terms of illustration. Like, I can't draw it, but I can visualize it. I can tell you what I want. And because of some of the social issues that we experience just within our communities, I try to debunk some of those things in my stories with the illustrations and my words. So Like a Salad is just my analogy for the differences in the family. You have all these different hues in the family, and they're celebrated. And the kids in the book, the siblings, Zalani and Asir, they associate the skin tones of their family members to different day-to-day things, like chocolate candy bars and khaki school pants and cherry tomatoes. So my up and coming book is Dancing Monkeys in My Soup.
I was thinking about that.
So it's being illustrated right now, and the illustrations are beautiful. That, believe it or not, that title just came to me one day. I was at work. I had a robotic program, and my sister brought my nephew to participate in the program with me. And I went in our workroom, and it just came to me, Dancing Monkeys in My Soup. A lot of times I come up with the titles first, but this is one of the times. And I am fascinated with monkeys. I love food. I think I said that before. And I love dance. So I just started writing the story. That same nephew, his name is Sire. He is like our dancing machine. He takes after his dad. His dad was a dancer when we were younger, and the book is dedicated to him. And this young man in the story, his name is Jabbar. He's on vacation in Peru when he finds pygmy marmosets, the world's smallest monkeys, dancing in his soup. Now, it says sometimes that Black people, African Americans, we don't travel, we don't vacation. So he's on vacation and with his mother and father, and these monkeys are doing some Afro-Peruvian dances. They're doing some West African dances and salsa in the soup, and nobody can get them out of the soup. So it's educating, but it's also really fun. It rhymes. I tend to rhyme in my stories, and that's just how it just comes to me that way. And so the story came to me pretty quick, and I decided that I wanted to create a series with Jabbar exploring different places. So the next book after this one has already been written, is being edited right now, and he's gonna be somewhere else in the world, and he's gonna discover another animal that people might not be familiar with, and just in the content of the book and him talking, you kind of learn different things about these animals. Dancing Monkeys in My Soup has a family and educator guide. So there's different activities that we encourage and also questions that we encourage. I was going to include an answer key, but I was like, no, that's too easy. I want to encourage to go and find the information, and I made sure I put the resources there so that they know that the answers are there. They just have to go and find them themselves.
Okay, who are the characters in the stories?
Nobody. Jabbar is Dancing Monkeys in My Soup. Empress Zaina, and in Like a Salad, you have Asir and Zalani.
There's nobody like that was inspired by these characters?
I would say Empress Zaina, maybe me, and my challenges, for lack of a better word, with my hair. Growing up, I've never really been crazy about hair. And it's always, I mean, it is very versatile. I can wear it straight, I can wear it curly. Then, like I said, I grew up in a beauty salon, so loosely based off of me. But the other characters, I would just say more experiences, life experiences than people.
What inspired you to write Like a Salad and how the Empress New Hair?
So my ideas usually come to me. I don't conjure them up. One day I was driving, I don't know why I remember this, but I was driving and the Empress's New Hair came to me while I was driving. And like I said, it's loosely based off of me and my challenges with my hair, but also growing up in a salon and just, being around women, my experiences with people. I noticed as an adult that people were more likely to approach me if my hair was short rather than it being long. I know it sounds silly, but that's just how it's been. I think the perception is a little different when I wear my hair straight. Well, it's locked now, so but when I wore my hair straight, people may have perceived, you had a light skin, long hair. The perception is that maybe I'm not approachable or personable. And the same with Like a Salad. Like I said, I come from a very culturally diverse background, and we have different hues in our family. And although differences were celebrated in my family, or they definitely weren't, we weren't mean to each other because of the differences. I know that other families, they have experienced things where, you know, maybe somebody with lighter skin was treated better than somebody with a darker skin. Also, growing up, people outside the house would see my mom and I together, or see a picture of my mom and be like, you know, you look just like your mom, except for she's dark. So those type of things are reasons, or the inspiration behind my stories.
Okay. What is your purpose in writing the books?
My preference?
Your purpose. What is the purpose of your books? Okay. What gender or age group is your audience?
So for Like a Salad, the intended audience is 0 to 6 year olds. But of course, you know, the message is for everybody. I read a quote somewhere, and I can't remember who wrote it, and I'm not able to find it. But if you want to write something, or you want adults to get a message, write it for children.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, Empress's New Hair is more, it's a little more advanced. There's a lot of cosmetology terms in there. I did go to high school and high school. So there's some big words in there, and I had got permission from Miriam to actually put the words in front of the book, the definitions. And so I know somebody made did a review, and they said something about the vocabulary being in front of the book. But my thing is, as a librarian and just knowing some behaviors of people, I didn't want to rely on them to go to the back of the book to look for the words. I wanted them to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that myself when I read on Kindle. That's one of the reasons why I like the digital read, is because I can click on a word and look up the definition or the enunciation of the word. So Dancing Monkeys in My Soup is for 0 to 8 year olds. So let me go back. I think the Empress's New Hair, I don't think I said, is a more like a pre-K to 4th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is important when writing a children's book?
The most important thing, I think, is to be able to get the children's attention, engaging them. And the illustrations are a big part of doing that, you know, because you have children who can't read, but they look at the pictures, and it's, you know, starting to touch the books and feel the books and look at the books. You have those illustrations, and it creates the desire to read, starting the cultivation of joy for reading process. So you have to think, you know, like a child when writing a children's book, and to kind of have an idea of what is going to be of interest to them.
Okay, what is Get Litty?
Get Litty is my reading readiness program. Mm-hmm. So I have not started. I was supposed to start my first one in June, but it's been canceled because of COVID. But it is a reading readiness program for children 3 to 5 years old and their families. And it is going to be a 6-week program where we cultivate a joy for reading, but also we prepare the little ones to learn how to read. So we're not teaching them how to read, but we're teaching them like some of the, you know, the skills that they need to learn. So we'll be doing like maybe making letters in sand, and, you know, making letters with paper, doing, you know, songs and things like that, read story time, and hopefully we'll be able to give parents books to start a library at home. For me, reading was something that was second nature. My household, my parents read to me before bedtime. And at the time, they sold the golden books at the grocery store. So every time we went shopping, my mother would buy books. And so I think that if we create that love for reading early on, very early on, then it's not a punishment to children later. And also, you hear people saying a lot of times that they don't like to read, and I always tell them, no, you haven't found something that you enjoy reading. Because if you don't like to read it, you're not going to read it. I love to read, but if it's something that does not hold my interest, I'm not going to read it. And I think that is the same with children. But if they know that this is the norm, like I would see my uncle reading, and that's one of the fondest memories that I have as a child, is seeing my uncle, who at the time was suffering from addictions, but he was still sitting there reading this thick Dean Koontz book. And so today we can talk and, have a discussion. He's come to my job and I've showed him how to download Hoopla and Outlook onto his phone so that he can get books from the library digitally and read on his phone. And we can have these discussions. So, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a question. If you had a parent come in and say, my child reads, but I don't like the genre that they're reading. You want them to read this over here, and it's like a struggle or a struggle to get them to read what you want them to read. What would you say to that parent?
I've had this discussion before where parents don't feel like what the child is reading has enough substance. And my words to them were, okay, so let's have a compromise. If you let them read one of their books and they read something that you want them to read, because you can't force them. You're just not going to force them to read what you want them to read. It's not going to be enjoyable to them. They're not going to get anything from it. And I've been able to convince parents to, kind of let the kids or children pick what it is that they want to read. Now, sometimes you have children who they want to read books that are below their reading level. And so, we kind of have to finesse that with the kids. But usually the parents understand where I'm coming from, because like I said, a lot of times it's not that people don't like to read, it's that they're being forced to read things that they don't want to read. Things that have been deemed classics they're just not interesting for children. And if they don't already have that love for reading, they're not even going to try it. So,
Okay. What did you learn when writing your books?
For Like a Salad and the Empress's New Hair, I did not have to do a lot of research or research at all, really. With the Empress's New Hair, like I said, I had to reach out to Merriman. So that was a different process for me to reach out to them to get their permission to use their definitions in the book. Dancing Monkeys in My Soup, I learned a lot about the different dances that are in the book. I learned how to enunciate them, which don't ask me to do it now. But there's like one dance called the Marinara. There's another one that starts with a Z, and I don't want to butcher it right now. Learned about the pygmy marmoset and its finger size, and also that it's there's people want to keep them as pets, but they don't do well as pets. They do better in captivity, but they do better in groups. They call them troops, and we talk about that in the book. And they're born in multiple births. They're like, if you put a stick of butter in your hand, that's about how much they weigh. So I learned a lot about the pygmy marmoset, and just how, there's a ban on people having them as pets and why we shouldn't have them as pets.
Okay. What's your favorite children's book, and what's your favorite YA book, being a librarian?
My favorite children's book is a very old one, and that is The House That Jack Built. And there's another one by Alexander. It's called The Rooster and the Barnyard Friends. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but I use it a lot in our summer reading program a couple years ago. And my favorite YA book, I don't know that I have a favorite YA book. I like Sharon Draper. And one of her books, something Sun, I can't think of it right now. I'm not really good with titles all the time, but that's probably one of my favorite YA books.
Okay. Now, how can readers find you?
Readers can find me on Instagram at Shenomino Inc. SHENOMENALINK. You can also find me on my website at sfhardybooks.com. I'm on Facebook, SF Hardy, the author, and I'm on Twitter as SF Hardy Writer.
Okay. And where can we find your books?
You can find my books on my website, sfhardybooks.com. You can also find them on barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com, amazon.com, bbombbookclub.com, and some other online retail outlets.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
Just that I hope everybody is safe and continues to be safe in this, what we're going through, and keep your spirits up. Try to do something that you enjoy, although you may have to do it in the house. Do some exercise and stuff to keep your mental health up, and read and celebrate differences.
All right. Thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All righty. You heard it. Thank you for coming in today. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye.